Thank you, Jake. Good morning, everybody. It's really lovely to see some very familiar faces in the audience. I may not look at you directly, it may put me off. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Steele. I'm the Head of Financial Wellbeing for Cushion, and I have responsibility for Better With Money. And Better With Money is Cushion's independent specialist financial education arm. So we work with about 160 employers through the UK, giving financial education to their employees to financially empower them to reduce that money stress. So today I'm talking to you about how to enhance that employee experience through financial empowerment, and that is a really meaty topic to get through in 20 minutes. So I'm going to try and break that down, get it through so that we can have some questions at the end. So let me start with that employee part of this topic. Now we know that employees are individual. They all have different needs. But what we do know they have in common, because there has been an abundance of research from governments and EBCs and companies, is the likelihood is your employees are worried and stressed about money. Now, Cushion did some research last year that found that 1 in 2 employees regularly feel anxious about money. And that's hardly surprising, is it? Because if you look at the MAPS research, you've got 43% of adults working for you today that have got less than £1,000 in savings. 11% of your employees are unlikely to have any savings at all. So what happens when costs start to go up like they are at the moment? People are turning to credit cards, they are turning to loans in order just to be able to afford to pay those bills. And of course, as that credit card debt and those loans start to build up, they start to feel stressed. They start to lose sleep. They start to have arguments with people around them. But for you as an employer, they're coming into work without having the headspace to be able to concentrate on the job that they're supposed to do. Now, in an office environment, that might just mean loss of motivation, it might mean loss of productivity. But if you've got a manufacturing site, worst case scenario, if their head is somewhere else worrying about money, there could be health and safety accidents as well. So it absolutely stands to reason that as an employer, you should be looking to financially empower your employees to try and help them through that, to improve their financial well-being. Now, before I go any further, I will just define what I believe financial well-being is, because it's a buzzword, isn't it? Everybody has a different idea. So for me, financial well-being means you've got enough money to pay the bills, with enough money left over to do the things that you want to do. So before we go on to look at how we can financially empower our employees, let's just look at what else is happening for your employees in the workplace, because it isn't all just about the cost of living that's providing this money stress. There are lots and lots of things that your employees are going through on a daily basis, far more complex situations that are going to be affecting their financial well-being. So if we look at that first circle there, nearly 15% of your employees are likely to be single parents. Now, if you look at the money charity, they say it costs on average £24.44 a day to bring up a child. So that's about £160,000 for their first 18 years. Now, even if you are eligible for child benefit, that's about £24 a week. So you're getting 1 day's worth of money to bring up that child. But it isn't just single parents. The other things on here, you've got caring responsibilities. You're going to have employees going through the menopause. You're going to have employees going through divorce. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper into each of those things so that you can really understand what you're dealing with here. So let's start with caring responsibilities then. You know, you're going to have parents in your organisation. You're also going to have those employees that are looking after elderly parents. That could be anything from just attending a medical appointment with them all the way through to having to help them with their daily needs. From looking at the Carers UK stats, it says that there are 10.6 million unpaid carers in the UK at the moment. The majority of them are women, and the majority of them are between about the ages of 45 and 64. So what does it mean to care for somebody then? Well, it means juggling those responsibilities. So what do people do? because they struggle to hold down a full-time job, they struggle to do that caring responsibility, it means they're more likely to go part-time, or in some cases, they might change jobs just to take less responsibility. But if we look at the bottom, nearly 600 people leave work a day because they have those unpaid caring responsibilities that they need to take on. So how is that impacting their money? Well, very simply, if they're changing jobs, if they're reducing their hours, they're getting less pay. And of course, with pensions, the likelihood is that the employer is paying a percentage of pay into the pension. So not only does caring impact on their money, it impacts on their pension as well. And carers on average spend about £114 a month of their own money to provide things for the person they're caring for. So a real financial impact there on caring, which a lot of your employees are going to be doing. The second one is menopause. This has exactly the same consequence as caring, because actually we know at the moment there's 5.9 million women between the ages of 40 and 64 that are in the workforce, and all of those could be experiencing menopausal symptoms. So, and what happens when they do? Well, there was a Channel 4 survey that said that 8% of women will turn down promotions during the menopausal phase, and 14% of women will again change jobs or reduce their hours because they're really struggling to cope with those symptoms. And those symptoms could be loss of concentration, loss of confidence. It could be that actually, who wants to go in a room and suddenly have a hot flush and then forget the name of your client? So for all of these reasons, again, people are reducing their working hours or even leaving. And the last one I just want to touch on briefly before we go on to how we can help these people is divorce. Because since the 1950s, 1 in 3 marriages in the UK have ended in divorce. Most marriages happen between the ages of 45 and 49. And on average, couples will spend about £14,500 in legal fees alone. But get this, it isn't just the legal fees, because of course what happens when people divorce, they're sharing their wealth. But here's the thing, only 15% of divorces take into account pensions in their financial settlements. And after houses, pensions are often the second largest asset. So you're going to have employees who may have spent a lot of time on caring responsibilities. They may have lower pension pots than their husbands or their wives that they're divorcing. If that pension is not taken into account in those assets, it means they're going to be left very short in future. I've shown on the slide just, this was from Manchester Collaboration. So the average married man will have a pension pot at age 65 of £185,000 compared to the average married woman of £55,800. But a divorced man is likely to have less at £100,000 in their pension at retirement compared to £19,000 for a divorced woman. So you can see all of these things are not only impacting on financial well-being, but they're impacting on gender pay and pension gaps as well. And I'm just going to touch on those briefly. So according to the BBC, back in April, the gender pay gap at the moment is 9.4%. So the average woman at a company earns 9.4% less than the average man. That impacts on pensions, but actually the gender pension gap is much bigger, at 33.5%. That means that women's pension pots are that much lower than men's. Now, if that was only affected by pay, you'd expect that number to be very similar. But of course, there's something else at play here. And what else is at play is that we know that pensions, savings, financial communications tend to play to men's language. So Cushion did some research last year, and we found that 65% of women, compared with 48% of men, found pension language really complex. And 26% of women, compared with 17% of men, found savings communications complicated as well. So with all of that background that we've just spoken about, cost of living, these life quakes that people are going through, all of these things that are impacting on finances, what can you do as an employer? And at Better With Money, we absolutely believe that providing independent, high quality, unbiased education has got to be the place to start. So how can you do that? Okay, well, first of all, as an employer, find out what your employees want to know about. And I always say here, do not assume. I mean, we have worked with many organisations, and often, particularly over the last 2 years, it isn't the low earners that are in the most amount of debt. It tends to be those earning between £50,000 and £100,000. They've got families. They're normally around the age of 40. We also ran a session that was specific for people that were coming into the workplace and teaching them all about what's on the pay slip and what does a tax code mean. And at the end of the session, it was the manager of that team that said, I had no idea about tax codes. I'm really pleased I heard about that. So just a couple of anecdotal stories there about never assume. Now, what we would suggest is maybe just run that first session, something around financial basics. Everybody needs to know about the financial basics, the budgeting, what is a credit score. Off the back of that session, have the survey come up as that session closes down or in the room. You can use the feedback from that survey to then really understand what is it that your employees want to hear about. Is it managing money when they become a parent? Is it the impact of money by going through menopause? Is it debt? Is it credit rating? So you can use that information to find out what they want. Number 2, absolutely give them the tools and the knowledge. And normally, you don't need to go far for this. I absolutely guarantee that within your organisations, there are employee benefits that you are already providing that will help people with their financial well-being that they probably don't know about. Not because you haven't communicated it, you may have given them all sorts of stuff, but until people hear it and look in the whites of the eyes, I'm talking about things like employee assistance programs, cash plans, discount schemes. By telling people about what you've already got, you can help them with a big shift forward. Number 3, make sure that information is relevant and it's unbiased. And I think unbiased is a real key. I mean, if I was a bank standing here saying, our bank account is absolutely the best bank account there is, you absolutely need to go with us, you wouldn't trust me at all, because you would know that I'm being financially incentivised and I work for that company. So to have an independent company come in to educate about finance, it builds that trust with the employee. Number 4, I think, is really important. Allow employees access to the information you provide them so they can access it at any time. Going back to the fact that you're going to have people who work part-time, they might do shift work, they may have caring responsibilities, they may just be somebody that likes their routine and doesn't like to break that in the day. So if you can, in any way, record that session, allow them to play it back at a time that suits them, that is going to help them in their financial journey. And don't forget that 1 in 7 of your employees are going to be neurodiverse. That means that they might learn slightly differently, they might read things differently on a page. So you really have to think about how is that being delivered. So for example, straightforward language, because it's going to be taken at face value, none of that jargon. If you're going to use slides, make sure there's great colour contrast, make sure they're well spaced. Even think about the font. I mean, the font that we've used today has been found to be one of the best fonts for dyslexic people. So think about that neurodiversity, and it may be that if you are going to provide education, why don't you run it through the Women's Network if you've got one? See whether they think, actually, this language is going to play out to the women in our organisation. And like any good communication, keep repeating those messages. Send out those recordings again, send out handouts, repeat that session so that people are starting to hear it again and again, because that's how they're going to absorb that information to help them make good decisions. And only then, once you've done that education, that's the time as an employer to think, actually, with the benefits we've got in place, is there anything else we could be doing? That isn't the first place to start, absolutely. Get the education done first, then think about what can we provide for them. So of course, we think a financial wellbeing programme and webinars, one-to-ones, whatever it might be, is the way to go. But I just want to touch on two other things. The first one is pension salary exchange. I know lots of employers do it, but there are still many out there that don't. So this means that your employee can, in effect, give up part of their salary in return for benefits. Things like pension contributions, electric cars, bikes to work. Why is that important? Well, first of all, through that, you know that your employees are going to be able to save their national insurance, so 12%. But not only that, it means they can use their salary effectively to make sure they're making the most of their money. For example, if you've got an employee that's just about to trip over into the higher rate tax bracket, so earning just over £50,000, they put a little bit more into their pension, they can stay in basic rate tax. If you've got employees where one of the partners is earning more than £60,000, they're not going to be eligible for child benefit anymore. If they put a bit more into their pension through salary exchange, bring their gross salary down, they can start claiming child benefit again. Your high earners, if you've got people going over £100,000, they're suddenly going to start losing their personal allowance. They're going to have to start doing self-assessment tax returns, put a little bit more into pension, keep their gross salary below that. It enables them to make their salary work for them and to be more tax efficient. And then the last thing I want to mention here is workplace savings. Of course, we want people to be engaged in pensions. We want people to save for the future and to have that financial well-being. But actually, where we started, employees are different. You are going to have employees that maybe want to save for a house, want to save for their kids' education. So providing ISAs through the workplace, through payroll, enables people to have those savings habit and for that money to come out beforehand. Now at Cushion, one of the things we do is we have a matching contribution structure for pension, but provided people have got 8% going into their pension, will allow people to divert anything above that into ISAs. And that can be particularly good if you've got higher earners who potentially are going over that annual pension allowance as well, to allow that pension redirect directly into workplace savings. Now, I just want to finish off very quickly to kind of bring this all together, bring it to life, just chat about one of our clients, Channel 4, who we work with. We've been working with them for a couple of years. They started off and said, right, we would like a programme of 4 webinars throughout the year, but we'd also like to back that up with 4 days worth of one-to-ones, so people can have those one-to-one conversations that they might not want to have in front of their peers. So they started off at that time 2 years ago, budgeting after COVID, which really was that money basics, and then they got the feedback, and actually the sorts of things that their employees have wanted is how to protect my family financially, find out more about wills, pension taxation was a big one, and actually what we've done recently is they actually said, those budget changes, those pension changes, can you put an extra webinar in? We really want to help people to understand what's happened now with pension allowances and the lifetime allowance, so we did that. And that coincided with their bonus sacrifice, so we were also able to say, this is how you do your bonus sacrifice, here is when the deadline dates are, and all the rest of it, which has gone down really, really well. The other thing they've done now is they've put in specific sessions for their apprentices and their graduates, really understanding that they might have different needs. We're doing the sessions a little bit shorter. We're following it up with specific one-to-ones, and that's been fantastic. Now, of course, with everything we do, we get that survey feedback, we feed it back to the client, so they know the engagement, they understand whether that person is going to take action as a result of that information, because they want to know what impact is this education having. But I thought the best thing to do would be just to read out some of the comments that have come back from those Channel 4 employees. So thank you for providing these sessions. They're so important. So many people don't find out about this stuff when they're younger. Thank you for the sessions on pension and one-to-one. They've really inspired me to reconnect with my pension and make it work for me. But the one that I thought really played to this topic this morning I feel extremely grateful that I work for a company that provides these services. I often feel overwhelmed when it comes to money, and these sessions have eliminated that. The person I spoke to was friendly and put me at ease. And I think that is absolutely the best evidence that you can enhance your employee experience through financial empowerment if you do it right.